Everyone, thank you and welcome. Thank you for coming to Meet the Monitor. It's nice to have so many people here. Stephen Leone, I'm the publisher of the Concord Monitor. And before we get started, I'd like to say thank you. Concord Library, great library to work with. Thank you for everything you've done. Concord TV, longtime partners, just a terrific resource for those of us who live in Concord. You'll be able to watch a recording of this after tonight on their website, Concord NH and that's on YouTube. And I hope I got that right. Mostly I'd like to thank you all for coming tonight. You know, we say this a lot. We see the Concord Monitor as a community resource, and that means that it's really as much as yours as it is ours, and we really mean that. And we're going to tell you about what we do, but we really also want to hear feedback from all our readers. And I would, just a quick informal poll, just so that we know who we're talking to. How many folks here are subscribers of the paper or the website? Okay, so most people. And then how many people are here just because they're interested in local news and learning more? All right, great. Okay, so tonight we're going to spend about half an hour going through a presentation, so we're going to hold off on questions, but that second hour is really about getting questions, as many questions as you have. We're really willing to answer anything. We'd prefer as much as possible to keep it on the future as much as we can, but really any questions you have, we're more than happy to answer, and this is part of things that we're continuously doing, so if we don't answer your question now, we can get to it some other day at some other event, answer an email, we're there for you. All right, so I'll be presenting this with opinion and engagement editor Amelia Wisniewski. And we'll have other Monitor folks here tonight. I don't have my glasses on, but I can see our editor, Jonathan Van Fleet, reporter, Jeremy Margolis, reporter, Charlotte Matherly, and news editor, Rebecca Pereira. And did I miss anybody? Is there anyone else here? No. Okay, good. So with that, turning it over to Amelia, who's going to kick things off for us.
Yes. No, thank you again so much, everybody, for coming out here tonight. It's such a lovely crowd that I'm looking out on tonight, and we're really excited to be presenting what the Monitor is and how we're moving in the future. So we go way back in time. Our first edition was published in May 23rd in 1864, and from then to now, we've really had community focus at the center of what we do, and we've been there through it all, through all the triumphs and tribulations that have happened in our community. And one example that I'd really like to share is a couple months ago, we reported on the 40th anniversary of the Challenger explosion and the disaster, and honoring Krista McAuliffe's legacy, who was a beloved teacher in the community. So our reporters, Rebecca, and our other editor, Rachel Walkman, were really steadfast in going through the Monitor archives of that day and what happened before and after the event. So that's just one of the ways that we really keep our past in mind and how we move forward with our legacy in mind, and also how we've kept the community through all of that intact too. And we're thinking about technology. It's really rapidly changing. Obviously, since the 1800s, it's really been a changing landscape. And we always have been thinking forward in that respect in order to bring the most up-to-date and the most informed news to you guys as possible. So this is our lovely team of both reporters and our advertising team. All of us, regardless of our role, go through our mission, which I'll read to you here. The Monitor's mission is to connect, engage, inform, and give voice to the communities we serve through trusted local journalism. Our reporting reflects the full fabric of community life and equips residents to better understand, participate in, and shape their communities. So on your left here, you're going to see our editorial team, which includes 9 full-staff reporters, 3 of which are also having a dual role as editors. We have our executive editor, our page designer who lays out the pages that you see in your newspaper 6 times a week, and a full-staff photographer as well. And our advertising team, we would not be here without them. They are really the ones that drive how we interact with our local businesses and our customers. And they are really a great resource for our local economy as well. So shout out to them. We couldn't be here without them. So we cover about 20 municipalities, mostly in the Merrimack County area, and that is divided among our reporters. So let's say there's a breaking news event happening in one of the communities or an event happening, the reporter assigned to that would go to that community and write up about it. And we also really pride ourselves in the specific topic areas that we cover, and that ranges from reporting on the State House to covering local sports games in our high schools, as well as covering all that's happening in K through 12 education. And we also have a really robust opinion section, which is what I am in charge of editing, and that can be in the form of our shorter letters to the editor that cover a wide range of subjects, and the same goes for our longer op-eds, or what we call my turns. We actually got rid of our editorial board a few years back, but we still believe that our opinion section is a really great way for our readers to have really nuanced conversations about the topics that we cover or the events happening on the national scale as well, and we're really happy to keep that tradition alive even if we don't have an editorial board any longer. So you can see here, these are a few of our recent front pages of our newspaper. And as you can imagine, back in the 1800s when we started, and for a while after that, this is all that we had to worry about, right? Is how we fit all the words in the allotted pages that we're given, how we can shorten the headlines to fit that, and how we scale the images that you see right here. But obviously, with a changing landscape in our industry and just across the world with technology, we've had to incorporate some other tools in our reporting as well. So behind all of this that you see on your doorstep or online, we also have all of this going on, which might be confusing to look at first, but these are just some of the ways that we have to bring the news to you in the form of social media and our newsletters, which we'll get into later. And this is all in an attempt to, bring news to as many corners of our different communities as possible. So the rest of the presentation is going to talk about how specifically the industry has changed all around us and how the Monitor has been able to adapt to all those changes and still be around, and how it has been around for several centuries and how it will be around for many more.
All right, part one. So there's going to be some movie slides here just because, felt getting a little silly. But you know what this is. This is Jaws, right? And this is because the newspaper industry has gone through some pretty scary times, right? So that's what part one is. It gets less scary, I promise. But let's go back to the beginning. Prior to 20, 25 years ago, things were great, right? Local news is fueled by 3 different forms of funding: advertising, classified ads, and circulation, right? And that did well, and people got their news from newspapers, the 6 o'clock news, radio stations. Everyone kind of had the same news, and we were much kind of probably in a better place in terms of having conversations, right? Then the digital age came along and kind of scrambled everything up. Some of it good, some of it, has been challenging. Redefined how we consume news and how news is paid for. And let me give you some examples. In 2002, there were 40 local journalists per 100,000 residents, okay? And that's in the US. By 2025, that's 8.2. Right? So now we're really talking about a scaling back of local news reporters and editors from about 1/5, right? So total newspaper industry employment dropped, really dropped significantly from 2001 to 2025, as you can see. So what that means, right, in the age of information, right, where we have more information than we've ever had in our lives at our fingertips, we really have fewer people to help verify independently verify and help you sort through that information. And that creates, I think, where some of the situation that we see ourselves in. There are things like pink slime websites that really are there to provide misinformation. The creation of AI allows for websites to be created with misinformation at almost a blink of an eye. And it's going to become more challenging, and we are, as the industry, facing some questions of mistrust. So what are some of the pressures, right? There's the digital giants. These are the jaws swimming around. And we all use them, right? And again, there are very good things, but they've really disrupted the world we live in other facets. Meta, Google, and Amazon account for 70% of all digital advertising, right? They've rewritten the rules, right? And this is the digital advertising where you have a conversation with a friend. Next thing you know, you pick up your phone and there's an ad looking at you, trying to sell it to you, right? Because they've created the products and ingrained them and taken people off of the 6 o'clock news, the radio stations, and the local newspapers onto the devices where they control the information that you get. Corporate owners, there's been a lot of challenges with corporate ownership, and it's not the journalists that work for the corporate ownerships, it's what corporate owners are trying to do, right? In a lot of cases, they're really trying to gobble up as many newspapers, and they're trying to make their earnings reports for the next quarter. Gatehouse, I remember a couple of years ago, 2022, I believe, they shut 19 newspapers in a day in eastern Massachusetts, near Boston. In a day, no more newspapers. Atlanta Journal-Constitution does not print anymore. Newark Star-Ledger does not print anymore. So you've really seen the change of corporate ownerships. Here we have the Nashua Telegraph, right? One of the best papers in New England for a long time, purchased by corporate ownership. They publish in print once a week. They have, I think, 2 reporters, one of which covers sports. So that's, right? That's not the mission that we're in. Hedge funds are the worst of them because they're buying up distressed properties and a lot of times for the land in the buildings. And the rate in which they lay people off far surpasses the rest of the industry. And then you have a place like the Monitor, which is family owned, which is we're a very small group in this country now of independently owned, family-run news organizations. And Newspapers New England owns the Monitor, owns the Ledger Transcript in Peterborough, Valley News in West Lebanon, and then a couple in Massachusetts. This is not an AT&T map, but this is news deserts, right? And what is a news desert? A news desert is defined as a place that has no newspaper, one newspaper, really it's devoid of reporting, and you really see the gaps in places, you're right, the yellow and the red. And this is what I show people when they think that, the challenge of news actually probably hurts rural America more than anywhere, because that's where you see the places that have now no independent reporting to go to meetings. We all know what happens when a reporter goes to a meeting. It does lower, oftentimes, the budget or public spending because, people are paying attention, right? So news deserts are something that are now being tracked, and they are growing. In New Hampshire, Eagle Times in Claremont, down the road, the Valley Sun, Suncook Valley Sun, Colebrook. I mean, there are papers that have just disappeared in the last few years. The Citizen in Laconia. So we've seen this locally, although New Hampshire is actually fairly strong. Do you want me to explain part two?
Please.
I'm going to kick over part two since this is my silly idea. This is, anyone know what this is? Apollo 13. I picked Apollo 13, which has Tom Hanks, Kevin Bacon, and someone, I have no idea who it is. And I picked it because, someone knows. I picked it because here was a group of people, right, in a really bad situation, and they're like, man, what are we gonna do? And they figured it out, right? That's what they did. They figured it out, and they didn't figure it out by themselves. They had people, you know, on Earth helping them figure it out. So I think this kind of stands as an example of the news industry with, you know, maybe a little less at stake than these three people had, but still a lot at stake. So over to you.
Thanks, Steve. So we're actually reaching a lot more people than we ever have before because of the digital age. It's really a benefit of having the technology advance so far. But that second bullet point might be a little surprising given that fact. We did have a peak of 20,000 subscribers at one point, but now we're down to about 8,000, which includes both our print and our digital subscriptions. But the reason we have so many views per month and so many users that come to our page is because we allot a certain amount of articles that can be seen before the paywall hits in a given month. And also, we're really utilizing social media to our advantage and posting most, if not all, of our articles on Facebook and Instagram that get a lot of circulation. And we also have really successful newsletters that have launched in the last few years. And a lot of them are focused on our reporters' beats, but we also have a daily morning newsletter that I believe has about 17,000 subscribers alone, which is incredible. And the image that you're seeing is the latest edition of our magazine Around Concord, which publishes quarterly throughout the year. And it shows these heartwarming and feel-good stories about how people gather in the communities that we cover. And it also features local authors as they talk about their fast favorites, and also does a roundup of seasonal events that are happening around our communities. So I think I've thrown around the word community a lot, and that's for good reason. You all are at the center of what we do as reporters, and besides talking to people for our day-to-day articles, we're also doing a lot outside of the newsroom and connecting with people, with this event being one of those. And we do that in order to fill information gaps for both us. We want to understand what makes readers tick, what they like about our paper and what they don't like about our paper. And we hope that our engagement activities are also informing you all about how we make our decisions, why we make those decisions, and how we're able to bring the news to you guys. And we also do this in order to promote community participation and give, you know, our face to our names on our website and see that we're not so scary. And you know, we are super aware that there is a lot of distrust in the media, especially in the last decade, but we want to show you that we are here, we have been here for many, many, many years, and we will continue to be here for many years. And we want to say that we're invested in our communities and that we do our utmost best to bring the news informed and accurate as possible, and obviously have that reach as many corners as we can. So through the work that we do, we've been recognized through awards that we get every year, as well as recognition from a lot of national organizations and media outlets. And we're also part of a really great collaboration that helps us work with other papers and newsrooms in New Hampshire, and that's through the Granite State News Collaborative. So if you happen to open up the paper and you see that there's articles from New Hampshire Public Radio or the King Sentinel, that is through that collaboration. And we also have our articles out there in those other papers and those other websites as well. And that's to get more eyes around what's happening in New Hampshire, so people might not subscribe to us down in the North Country or in the South, but that collaboration helps us gain that traction. So staffing has gone through a lot of fluctuation over the last several years, but we're lucky enough to partner with a lot of local organizations and nationally in order to fund some positions and some of the work that we do. So 2 examples, and they're actually here today, which is exciting. So we have Charlotte Matherly, who covers the State House for us, and she's here from Report for America, which is a national organization that matches early career journalists with local newsrooms in order to combat the effect of news deserts that Steve mentioned earlier. And we also have Jeremy Margolis, who covers education for us, and he comes from the Barr Foundation, which heavily invests in education and the arts and the environment throughout New England to promote creativity throughout the region. And we also have a number of partnerships that fund some of the work that we do. A couple of examples being our Arts Ahead, which is a weekly roundup of events happening on the weekends. And we also have Everyday Wellness, which shows ways that Granite Staters are staying active and hopefully promoting our readers to do those activities as well. And we just finished up a series called Hometown Heroes, which was a year-long series that readers could submit people that were doing really exemplary work in their region. And we got to meet them and write about them, which was a very cool opportunity to do.
All right. Part 3, what's ahead? This picture, it says you're fired, which is kind of funny looking at it now. So this is from Back to the Future 2, right? And Back to the Future 2 was from 1985, and it was set in 2015, right? And this is, I think that's Marty McFly getting fired through a fax machine, right? Because that's, right? The point is, we don't know where technology is going. So we're really ramping up on technology and changing what we're doing and trying to imagine what the future looks like and really looking ahead. But the reality is we can only look ahead so much because the technology is going to change and we have to change with it. The same way we changed when the press was, being turned and cranked out by hand, and then electricity, and then, we started delivering things by driving in cars, right? We're always having to adapt to the changes, and that's going to be important to us. Our priority in all of this is the same that it's been since 1864, is to inform people about what's happening in their community, and that won't change. It'll look different, right? It'll look different. Pick up a paper from 1864, that thing looks different too, right? But we're changing. So what is it that we want now, right? In the world that we're living in, right? We talked about Google and Facebook, and we use all those things, and we use them to try to bring people onto our site. We want people on our site, right? Subscribers are what allow us to become more capable as a newsroom. And it's just as simple as that. The more people we have that are subscribers, the more we can invest into our newsroom and the better job we can do. I get this question a lot. Probably the question I answer the most, are you going to keep printing the newspaper? One of the differences with our company is that we actually have a printing press. We have perhaps the biggest printing press in northern New England, sitting in Pennacook. It's actually a really interesting thing to go visit. And we print a lot of papers from across New England, so it's a big, important part of our business. But look, the print economics are going to change. I don't know when, I don't know how it's going to look, but the reality is that paper is only becoming more expensive. The volatility of the cost of paper, be that through tariffs or threatened tariffs or changes in paper mills saying, you know what, I'm getting out of the newspaper business, which then tightens the market. So it's a complex thing, but we are committed, again, to providing journalism in the best way we can. Philanthropy and donations are becoming a bigger part of our industry. That's something that is starting to grow. Amelia talked about it in terms of some of our funders, and then the foundations like the Charitable Foundation, which helps support one of our positions, the Barr Foundation, which helps support one of our positions. But we have strong firewalls right? In fact, they get a document that says, this is the division that you're in, is that you don't get to dictate anything we write, you don't get to see it. What you do is get to say, hey, we stand by local journalism, we feel it's important, and go do your job. Okay, so we're trying to build a new cycle of support, right? Greater capacity in the newsroom, all the things we can do. Cover new stories, dig into new topics, bring more critical issues to our readers in a state, right? More readers, right? Knowledge is power. We want to make sure we can get to as many people as we can, right? We have a paywall, but we're always thinking of ways that we can say, okay, paywall is important. In fact, if we didn't have a paywall, we'd have a much smaller newsroom, right? So we need a paywall, and we need to sell subscriptions, but we also recognize that we need to make information available. I'll give you an example. Our recent election coverage, we made free to everybody because it's like we're giving you information so you can go and cast a vote in the city. We want people to be informed. So we're always kind of balancing what that means, and it changes, and it's a challenging thing that we're trying to figure out. The more people we can get onto our site, reading our paper or reading something like our e-edition, it's just good for local businesses who then can get their message out to more people. We are lucky to have a vibrant economy in Concord. We love local business, right? We're always promoting shop local because, I think it's just an important part of the world. And, new restaurant opens, we'll write about the new restaurant, and people are like, yeah, that's an interesting place. That's an important part of what we do, so we look at advertising as a key, and our business community as a key element of the world that we're in. So the technology that we've migrated to, our website, we have a new content management system. It's called NewsPack. It's pretty much on the cutting edge of digital innovation in terms of it does a lot of things that are really just built for digital journalism to allow us to grow, but more than anything, it's positioned that as the technology changes, we now have a partner that will change alongside it so that we can always stay ahead of the curve. Newsletters, we reach more people now through newsletters that we can connect with, right? People like reading news in their email, getting a connection, hopefully coming back to our site. This is an example of Catherine. Catherine who's covering a meeting right now, so you can read about it tomorrow. It's about it's about the budget, school budget. So she does very well with her newsletter. Rebecca does the daily morning headline alerts newsletter, so you'll see her every morning telling you about the headlines. We have an app where you can read the news, but you can also read the newspaper on our app. If anyone's ever, the e-paper, it's essentially, people love the paper, right? And some people have said, you know what, I love the paper. I don't like going outside in the morning and fetching it from my bushes, or, there's other times where maybe the paper doesn't arrive to you as you expect. It's been known to happen. So the e-paper fills that, right? It's a product that gives you a hierarchy, uses newspaper design to say, hey, this is what's important, big photos, and it's a very slick tool. People really like it. And then we're really using things like analytics to, really understand what people want, right? What drives people, right? What makes them readers? What do they value the most? I think this is important. Someone asked me a couple years ago, what's the most important thing that's changed since I've been in journalism, which was since the mid to late 90s. And I said analytics, because up until 5 years ago, you just kind of went with your gut. I think people like this, and now you're challenged with actually understanding what people valued. And of course, I said 2 years ago it was analytics. Now it is AI is the biggest change, because it is redefining everything about journalism and everything about our lives. It is probably the biggest thing that has happened in our lifetimes. And it's almost sometimes mind-numbing to think about all the possibilities and shifts that may not happen, the good, the bad, how it's all going to sort out, and it's something we're keeping an eye on. But we know that, we need to engage with AI to make ourselves more capable, but we also have to be more human at every step of the way, because ultimately, I think that's what people, right? We're in a room right now with each other. Like, that's what we need to be doing, is being in rooms with people, talking to people, connecting with people, and then using smart technology to, in some cases, dig through data that we'd never be able to dig through in the past, right? You can only look at so many, spreadsheets. AI can do that better and identify trends. At every step of the way, we're committed to being ethical and transparent in how we use it. And we'll, keep doing that and, keep people informed as it evolves, because it's going to evolve. And that brings us to questions. How do we do on time on that?
I'm not sure.
Because we got, oh my God, that was a half an hour, just like we planned it.
Awesome. Yeah.
Okay, so questions, and I think really anything's on the table, and I see one back there and then one up there, so we'll start. Okay,
Letters to the editor.
yes.
Who, is it one person that handles those, or how are those done?
Yep, that's me.
It's you.
Yes.
So it's always, you're.
Well, when she's away, we help out.
Yeah, obviously.
Okay, I'm just wondering, because the last two I submitted, I never heard a thing about it, and they were PG rated.
I'm sure. Yeah.
So why don't you answer a little bit about our
Yeah.
letters to the editor and what we're trying to do and what we make available.
Yeah, so we do accept all the submissions that come our way usually. My job is to kind of proofread it and do grammatical, checks and fixes. And sometimes, we have a strict word count. It's about 250 words. It can go like a little over, but we try to stick to that amount as best as we can. And also, I try to fact check letters. We can't just post blatantly false information, obviously, even though it is opinion-based. So I try to look at things like that for
But you would make contact with somebody who submitted erroneous facts, or would you just circular the thing and throw it away? And would you let them know that their submission couldn't be printed?
I try my best to respond to our readers, but we do get so many submissions, both op-eds and letters to the editor, that sometimes it is impossible and it just moves pretty quickly. But
And let's connect later to understand maybe we're not receiving it too.
Maybe we
there could
had
be,
had issues with that as well.
And recognize if there was a technical issue.
Yes, follow up to that question
Okay.
about letters.
Sure. Quick
May I
follow-up.
take the question I have is, your policy is you actually publish the name of the letter writer.
Yes.
And that probably holds a lot of people back from expressing their opinion.
Yep.
Because of the fear of what's gonna happen to them.
Yep.
And I know in my neighborhood, I'm one of a few that support a lot of things and the rest of them do, and we have this discussion.
Yep.
What would happen if I write a letter expressing my views, and because you publish my name, now it's a lot of people
Yeah.
having that opinion, and yet, that's all my question.
Yeah, I'll answer that. I mean, look, we're a public platform
Right.
where we want to be a place for communication, discussion, civil debate, right? Key to that is people telling us who they are. We would never publish a letter. I couldn't imagine the scenario in which we would publish a letter that did not include someone's name and where they're from, because that's a key part of, the experience. We really demand that it's a civil dialogue that happens. We, for a period of time, had comments on our site, and a lot of times this is in the letters to the editor. Someone would write a letter to the editor, and then all of a sudden, they would face all this pushback. And that's one of the times where we were just like, this is not what we're going for. And we probably lost a lot of readers and views because of that, but it just wasn't healthy. So what we're trying to do is create a healthy, informed debate. And actually, I'm sorry, I forgot to invite other people up, because John, come on up. if you're on the monitor, because there are other people here that should be answering things
Yes.
like these questions. And Charlotte and Jeremy, you are more than welcome. I think Rebecca was here. Did she
Yep,
move?
she's right there in the back.
Oh, she's way in the back. Okay. Yeah, it may be a
guys.
bring your own chair. I'm sorry, guys, I forgot about that. So while that's happening, how about,
Right
You have a
here,
question?
yes.
Subscriptions are paper and how many are how many, what's your?
yeah, so right now, so subscriptions, we're pretty close on home delivery, right, and digital subscriptions. But on top of home delivery and digital subscriptions, we have rise in mail delivery, right? About a third of our copies actually are delivered by the mail now, right? Especially in rural areas, and this is a movement that has happened across the country where people are seeing mail as just a better way to ensure you get your paper in your doorstep. The timing sometimes can be not the best for people. Won't arrive at 8 or 6 in the morning. It may arrive when your mail arrives, well, it will. But it's more consistent. And then we also have single copy, right? People go to the store and purchase. So those are the areas: home delivery, mail, single copy, digital. And they all kind of make up that 8,000.
Right here.
First of all, thank you guys for what you do. I kind of wanted to piggyback off of the changing landscape and what you guys think is the importance of the First in the Nation primary and how local news to be able to speak to that instead of, it being a national, that you guys are able to use that lens to share that story with people in New Hampshire and then the rest of the country. So I don't know if that.
John, why don't you start with that one?
Yeah, happy
And
to.
why don't you guys introduce yourselves so they know who you are?
Rebecca Pereira. Charlotte Matherly. Jeremy Margolis. You saw their pictures earlier today. I'm Jonathan Van Fleet. The First in the Nation primary, that's a very interesting question. The primary, I would say, and I don't want to give you a hot take, but has lost some of its importance because it's lost some of its genuineness. In terms of the candidates themselves, they used to have all kinds of community level events. And then if you think back the last maybe 12 years, the last 3 primaries, you would have these mega events. They are now sort of less house party, and they're more kind of arena. You saw this with the current president and even the Clinton campaign. You're getting less interaction between the New Hampshire voter and these candidates. You're getting more scripted. The campaigns are kind of controlling the message much more because in these days of social media, nobody wants that embarrassing moment. There are video cameras everywhere on these candidates, and they're all trying to control the slip up. Whereas it used to be, you didn't have a phone, you didn't have somebody recording your every move, and you'd have these more genuine conversations. And that is really the heart of the New Hampshire primary. It's becoming less and less that. And then the Democrats took away the primary altogether. So, who knows if we're gonna have a Democratic primary again. So it is a tradition. I would hate to see it go, but we as a journalistic news source, I think need to push for that authenticity of the candidates and try and get access. There's a lot of events just kind of behind the scenes where they won't say where the candidate's gonna be unless you RSVP. And so it's all kind of secret. And it's like, well, we shouldn't have to RSVP. The candidate, this is a public event. And so when we go, they're like, oh, you're press, you stand over there in the corner. Everyone else gets to hang around together, but the reporters are actually segregated from the public, which is another way of controlling the message. So that is presented a challenge to us. I don't think we should be RSVPing. I don't think we should be standing behind a velvet rope whereas the public has certain access and then we don't. We don't have access to the public, but these are ongoing challenges in the news industry.
Thank you for that. I think that it kind of speaks to the uniqueness of New Hampshire and what you guys do, and like what I think, hopefully if the Democrats wise up and continue to engage and treat you guys like equals.
Before we take another question, I did want to go back to the letter to the editor question. If you ever send in a letter and you haven't heard from us, you can call the newsroom. I answer the phone in the newsroom. I try and answer every time it rings, but if you leave a voicemail, I'll call you back too. And then in terms of who hears back from us, we get a lot of letters from people who are outside the community, outside the state. We're not prioritizing those people. We're prioritizing you. We're prioritizing local people. And so local people should deserve a callback.
Can I add one thing? Because we got an email today, a question
Yes.
that asked, do you publish letters to the editor that you agree with exclusively? And the answer is a flat out no. The reality is we get a lot more letters from one side of the aisle. We get a lot more liberal leaning, Democrat leaning letters than we do Republican leaning letters. But that's because that's what's being submitted. As long as people are making reasonable, fair, civil arguments, not calling people out in a terrible way, and being truthful and honest, and you live locally and you follow the guidelines, we'll publish it happily.
Just for the record, I've had many letters printed in the past, including my terms. This is a recent development.
Okay. Yeah, I wonder if, yeah, let's connect.
Follow on. Thank you. Yes, the lady.
Have you considered doing weekly publishing instead of daily?
Oh, have we considered doing a weekly publication?
Instead?
No, not really. I mean, it's always kind of like, what's the newspaper industry going to be in 5, 10, 15 years? I mean, I could see that being something, but it's not anything that we're thinking about. We have a strong readership. People like it. And even if we were going to do a weekly paper, let's just go down that road. We're printing once a week. I'm not saying we're doing that, but even if we were to do that, I think at this point, we'd still produce a newspaper for the e-edition because we have such good readership and people really like the e-paper, right? So even if we were doing once a week, we'd still be doing other publications that felt like the newspaper. We just wouldn't be printing it, and it'd probably be because of the volatility of paper and the cost of delivery.
Yes.
So I think we have one back there and then one up here.
Oh, okay. We'll take the one back here.
Could you share with us what your policies are that determines what is news and therefore what you print? And people accuse the Monitor, or some people, of being rather liberal paper. I don't know if that's true or not. I'm not making a judgment on that. But there's a lot of good news that's not printed, and yet we get a fire. As there's a fire, whenever there's a fire, we get a front page spread of that. But it's interesting to know. I guess you have a daily meeting in the morning, maybe. What are the factors upon which you determine what you're going to print and what you're not going to print?
So I think one of you guys handle that.
There is no, as the editor, right, you may think that I'm the one that's calling the shots. It doesn't work that way. The reporters are the ones that are gathering the news, and it's true, there've been a lot of fires, and we have been putting the fires on the front page a lot. Part of that is we wanted to be better at covering breaking news, and we felt that we had become a little slow in responding to that type of news, and so therefore now we are trying to cover that in real time, get it on the website, and feature it in the paper. These are people's lives that are being affected. When you lose a home, there are few events that are so life-changing. We are trying to reflect what's happening in the community at all times. And I'll kick it to you guys. So we do have a meeting, and the reporters say, And Amelia was saying the reporters have their beats. So here's what's going on geographically in my communities. There's been a meeting, there's this sort of stuff happening. You find stuff on social media. We kind of talk about that, what is, and then really it's, you sort of have a menu of things to work on, and it's really about prioritizing that list, this versus that, because there's only so much time and there's only so many reporters, but, you know, I'm happy to.
To speak briefly to part of the question about the political filter that we apply to our stories and our, I guess our prioritization of certain stories. Charlotte has a story in tomorrow's paper about crisis pregnancy centers, and those have become increasingly scrutinized in Massachusetts and Vermont and some of our liberal neighbors in New England. And a couple of months ago now, Jeremy had a profile on a kind of local political agitator, a conservative who wanted to severely, and succeeded in severely cutting the local school budget. We see these stories as, you know, neither conservative nor liberal, but an inside look at the processes and systems that motivate people in our communities, that motivate, you know, these events where we look back and say, how could this have happened? How could $2 million have been cut from the budget and no one knew? And so that is not we hope that it doesn't read as our own personal political leaning or some kind of, you know, we aren't coming together a little cabal of reporters and deciding that this is the, you know, this is the perception that we're going to apply to the story. But we feel that it's important for our reporters to be able to observe trends happening in their beats, whether it's education or reproductive rights, and come to us and say, I want to have a story that takes a more systemic look. And that's neither, you know, our own political agenda, nor is it deprioritization of fires or other important events happening in our community. We just try to provide our reporters with as much kind of leeway and independence and autonomy to be able to gather news and execute their own news judgment in saying, this is what I think is important.
If I can add on to that, I mean, we can only see so much going on, like on social media from our communities, and we do have a news tip online, so if you're seeing something that maybe we're not, that's open to anybody to submit to, and Rebecca monitors all of that. So, and we get a lot of our stories, ideas from those tips as well. So that's a very also helpful resource for our readers to see stuff happening in their community and being reflected in the paper.
And I'll say on the politics side, I covered the state house, state and some national politics. When I'm looking at the more than 1,000 bills that are in the legislature, I am, of course, can't cover every single one. But I'm looking at how much money is it? Where are your tax dollars going? I'm also looking at who's affected by this, how many people, is it something that we're seeing kind of play out in our local communities and to the people that we talk to and see every day. And then another question I ask is, are people talking about it? Social media is pretty helpful, and a lot of that can get bogged down in political talk on social media, but it is a good indicator of, you know, how people are thinking or feeling about certain issues and what matters to them as well.
Before we move on, I want to pick on Jeremy just for a second, because I don't even know the answer to this question. He did a story about a number of houses that were in Loudon, and they were being taxed by the Concord School District. A very kind of tiny little story, but it was very prominent on our front page. I don't even know how you found that story. So there's an example of news.
Well, I think that's an interesting example because that sort of flies in the face of everything Charlotte was saying about newsworthiness. This is something that is affecting, it was like a dozen households. So it's like, should I really spend what turned out to be a lot of hours on that story when it doesn't affect that many people? And I think maybe there's an argument to be made that I shouldn't have spent that much time. But I thought it was this quirk of history that told us something about what education used to look like, and it was something that the people who were affected, at least some of them, were very passionate about. So I thought it was this sort of quirky human interest story that I thought people would want to read about. But I think it's probably not, as I said, doesn't follow, if you were to go through the checklist of how we decide what is the most newsworthy. There's a lot of reasons it doesn't score very high on that checklist.
You're skirting around the question though, where'd you find that?
Oh, where did I find that story? I was at a meeting in Loudon, a school. Well, it was a school board adjacent meeting, and this guy got up there and he started talking about the situation that he'd been in for 2 decades.
Great story.
Yeah, it was a good story.
I love that story too.
Well, you're always trying to hit the balance, like the fire. We need to tell people what's happening, right? So we need to give them the information they need, but we also have to give them the information they didn't know they needed. I love that story.
That was a good one.
Yeah, because it was like, yeah. And I think, I don't know who's next. Have you asked?
Yes, I know you've already eliminated the Sunday paper.
Yep. Yeah.
What do you think is the future of the rest of the papers?
The rest of
How much longer do you think we're gonna have them?
Oh, well, I'll tell you, we don't have any plans that are concrete. We're always looking. I mean, I'd say probably the biggest thing that we may be considering in the short term is mail delivery. Delivering the paper by mail. And we already do that for a third of our coverage area. We deliver by mail. And most news organizations of our size have made that shift just because it makes more sense. It gets us out of an element of the industry that's really hard to keep up with. And it just, and it helps everything about our process. But we haven't even made a decision on that yet, right? So we're just looking. But as far as cutting days of the week, that is not something we're looking to do, but I'm also gonna say, we'll take that as it comes, because we don't, again, as we shift, it'll be clear to us that we have to do it if we ever get to that point. But we love our print readers. I mean, look, our best readers are our print readers and the people that have transitioned to the e-edition, right? The e-paper, we call it the e-edition, we call it the e-paper now. When we looked at the analytics of the number of stories people read when they come to our site, we know that subscribers, you need to be logged in, that read our e-paper are on for many times longer than people that are not subscribers or just coming to read the website. They are our best readers, so we want to keep people happy, right? The reason we're here is because we have subscribers that support us. I think we have one here and then back.
Yeah, my comment is on the legislative section of it. I wish it was a lot more broader, and then you have so many bills, you say 1,000, but I don't know that as a citizen of the state without going onto the state website and trying to look things up. So maybe is there a way for you to take some of that stuff and just list these bills out and be aware of it and comment on some of these? You spend a lot of time in legislators, 300, 600 people in there, and I have no idea what they do, and they never address the issues that are important to New Hampshire. So what are they doing?
Well, they don't do anything, they're people, they don't, it's not like they have some magic powers or something.
Well, yes, but they can at least look into stuff and express opinions about how we're gonna change our tax structure. What are we gonna do for this? What are we gonna do for school funding? None of that is coming out of the legislature.
Yeah, no, because the first thing you do when you're elected is that you need to elect, focus on is the next election.
Yes.
So I don't know if you have anything to add to that, Ken?
As far as kind of letting people know what's out there, that is something that we tried in the legislature last year. I would put out sort of a weekly recap of here's some of the big ticket items, here's some of the things to watch for in the next week. It wasn't super well read, so we decided to kind of discontinue that after trying it last year. But if there's interest in it, I'm not opposed to bringing it back. But there was also, we tried a legislative guide that Rebecca and I made, and that's something that we can do again, where we kind of walk through the legislative process, the key players, the big issues that are on tap for a given session. And so I'm happy to chat with you after if that's things you want to see.
There was a period of time where there were fewer reporters covering the New Hampshire State House. The numbers have been shrinking, and it has actually increased fairly dramatically in the last few years with the opening of the New Hampshire Bulletin. So you have 3 new State House reporters there. The Monitor went without a State House reporter for a little time, and then we hired Charlotte, and her, when we were thinking about her position, rather than just have another State House reporter doing the same thing that all the other State House reporters are doing, we wanted to create a position that focuses on the people that the legislation affects. So rather than focus on this side of the meat grinder, we were focusing on the other side. So rather than, and it's somewhat unavoidable to write about what's happening in the State House, but try and put the lens and ask oneself, who is this going to affect? Is there a tangible person involved in this? And if we can highlight the actual people involved, like those who are testifying for and against these pieces of legislation, that's the type of State House reporting that we are trying to deliver to our readers.
I think I saw a couple hands there, and I see you too. You're gonna have to just stay on top of it. Let's actually go to the back.
I just wondered how time efficient mail delivery is, because it seems like mail's taking longer and longer to get.
Yeah, I mean, that's some of the things that we're looking at right now is what is the efficiency rates, and will it serve our readers better than we can do it? So these are all the things that we're talking about, and again, nothing's been determined, but this is one of the things that we're exploring.
Thank you.
I can actually say mine was recently switched to being mail delivery, and I get it way more consistently than I did before I was mail delivery.
Are you in Hopkinton?
Henniker.
Henniker?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that wasn't my question though. My question was, I'm just curious, if you had 2 brand new staff people tomorrow that you could do whatever you wanted to with, what would you do with them? What would you think would be most?
Oh boy. We're gonna get into a tug of war on here. We're always thinking of new ways to bring new news. I would say if I could invent somebody, I think it would be to be a development person that could help bring philanthropy and communicate our message to the people who can help support us. Because I think that money is then reinvested into news, and I think that would bring way more reporting than we can ever imagine, right? So it's like, hey, can you take one person and create one person's worth of news, or you can take one person and create 5 people's worth of news? So that's my answer.
Can I just say something?
Sure.
Well, we really want to know what we're not covering that you all want to see covered. So, I would turn that question back on you all, and you should tell us where are our blind spots. And I don't know exactly what the forum is to that. Certainly, I'm happy to stick around afterward, but you can also send any of us emails. We have to pick and choose, and it would be really helpful to know if we're making the right decisions and when we're not.
Thank you. If you seriously are considering going to mail delivery,
Yes.
I think it would be a good idea to do a reader survey.
Yeah. So,
And my mail sometimes doesn't come until late afternoon.
yeah, and again, I mean, 1/3 of our delivery is already through the mail. So we've gone through a lot of the processes to say, okay, well, where do we have to make this change, right? Because sometimes we just have to make it because of other factors. But yeah, listening to readers, and I think more than anything, when we make that being available for readers to understand, and even more so, reaching out to those areas and letting them know that in some cases, mail that may have been, or delivered that may have been unreliable is now going to be more reliable. And I think, frankly, communicating that we have the e-paper, I think, is another piece for people that had been subscribers and were like, you know what, I'm going to cancel my subscription because I'm just not getting the paper like I expected. So I think one back here. I'm doing my best. There's a lot of questions.
I saw
okay.
the person in the red shirt. Yep.
Red shirt?
Yes.
Thanks, Nick. Traditionally, newspapers had copy editors that had people who were dedicated exclusively to tracking down whether or not facts were accurate or not when they turned up in stories. And they often had style guides, in-house style guides that their copy editors used as a way of tracking whether they were doing the right thing or not. How do you handle those functions since you don't have room for a lot of extra people on your roster?
So those people still exist. We have a shared desk, so the people who are doing the layout, and we now have more editors. So there was a period of time where we were leaner, and there was a smaller group of people putting the paper out, and it was like, are we reading every story 2 and 3 times? And sometimes the answer was no. Sometimes I would be the only person reading the story, and as good as I try and be, I make mistakes, including front page headline mistakes from time to time that I'm not too proud of. But we have more people and more sets of eyes reading those stories, and we used to kind of sit at a pod and have a copy desk in the evening, and people would print out big pages and have red pens and blue non-repo pens. Those people are mostly remote now, but they're still doing their work. We are now communicating virtually, and somebody said it, AI. We are using AI to a degree to help us, like a program called Grammarly. It helps spot grammar mistakes. We use a program, you saw it on the slide earlier, Noda helps us suggest sort of SEO for our website. The metadata in the news articles. And Rebecca, I'm not sure if you have anything you want to add here, but as the news editor, she's editing stories, I'm editing stories. During the day, if she reads something, I try and go back and reread it and vice versa. So that, as I was saying, there's more sets of eyes on the story. We are not using AI to edit our stories. But it can do a pretty good job, and I have to say, when you ask AI, how could you make this story better? A lot of times it comes up with good answers. I think the way to use AI, if I were a reporter, would be very similar to back in the day. You would go into like a closet or a small room and you would read your story out loud, and you would kind of hear audibly the kinks that needed to be worked out. You can use AI as a sounding board, as a writer, and because it doesn't change anything unless you choose to change it, and it can be your own personal editor. I think that would be an effective way to use AI in a newsroom.
I think we're also lucky to have fairly clean writers. We all have room for improvement, but the majority of us studied journalism in some way, came to the Monitor with a sense of AP style, and you were talking stylistically, these kind of guidelines that govern how we write. So things as small as the absence of an Oxford comma, which you might have strong feelings about, but we don't use, and that is not our in-house style. That is AP style. It's it's our industry standard. It's what most newspapers adhere to, and so luckily our reporters know to adhere to that style, and we know to edit for that style, and so we all that minimizes disagreements in the newsroom.
And I'll bring up an interesting point that I've been fascinated about for years. People don't call to complain about typos online. It's in print. And that's when I feel bad about it. Online's like, oh, let's go fix it, and you fix it. There's something about the indelible nature of print that you live with it, and all the mistakes that we've made that we remember, it's because it was in print. And man, those are bad days.
Sorry, just to address the other part of that question, which is about fact checking. As Rebecca mentioned, we all went to journalism school and know how to fact check our own work, and that's how the operation kind of goes. Is we double, triple check the facts that we're putting in the paper, double, triple checking quotes that we put in the paper, and I think Rebecca does a pretty good job of asking questions of like, oh, this doesn't quite make sense here. What did you mean by this? And so it goes through that process. And for opinion, since it's just me at the helm, I try to be pretty rigorous as well. And something I already mentioned of checking those facts and those quotes and those pieces as well.
Okay. No, we had a question back there, and we had one over here.
So explain your philosophy on the sports page, particularly the emphasis on high school sports.
Who do you want to do that? You want me to do that? High school sports, so local sports, okay. Because professional sports, just so you know, we can't cover the game, the Red Sox game, right? But local sports, we want to, we want to show the triumph, right? The challenge that these kids are going through. We want to be mindful to recognize that we don't want to replicate like the way you would cover a Celtics game. It's like, oh, you missed that shot. What was wrong with that? It's like these are high school kids putting themselves out there, sometimes in a very public way. And sometimes, I mean, when they're dealing with defeat, it's very public and it's like heartbreaking to watch. But sports, I started out writing high school sports, right? That was my internship in college. I think it's a way to connect with the community. I think it's a way to do so that tells about all the good things that are happening, that takes an honest look at what it takes to achieve, helps build kind of the next generation. I sometimes wish sports is easy to cover in that way, much easier than it is academics. I wish we could translate what we do with sports to high school math class, but I don't think that would be a very interesting read. So yeah, I hope that answers the question. I remember, so Heather from the Ledger Transcript is here, and I remember when I got to the Ledger Transcript in 2008, I was the editor there. It just really struck me as that it's that moment where someone cuts out the picture and puts it on that fridge. Right? That's important. And I hope that's a part that we can find a way to carry forward, because I still run into, I was on the cover of I was on the sports section of the Monitor. It's like, yeah, great. That was good.
I live in town, and my paper's delivered early in the morning. The guy throws it anywhere he wants, and that is a problem. But I use the paper to start my day.
Yep.
And I really, really appreciate getting the paper first thing in the morning.
Yep.
And maybe it's because I live in town, I have a huge advantage.
Yep.
So I'm going to, as an older guy, I guess I'm going to have to learn how to use the electronic edition. And, but please don't rush into that.
No, we're not rushing into it. Look, I know this could, and again, we haven't made any decisions, specifically for Concord, where a lot of our readership is. For, the third of our readership, it's more in our remote areas where it was frankly much more difficult for the economies of scale, right? When you're delivering one paper every, half mile, that does not work. But yeah, we will listen, we will have conversations. We recognize that it could be a change for people. But I hope what people value is the news, the journalism, the product, and that, you know, we can carry it forward, because that's important to us.
I just want to add, your e-paper is fantastic.
I
It's
agree.
easy to use, it brings up the article that you wanna read
Yeah.
in big print, whatever, it is fantastic.
I'll-
So I'm
I'll-
gonna just put that out.
I'll
for
make
you.
an admission, I used to have the delivery of the paper at my house, and I was like, I just wanted to roll out of bed and go on my iPad and click on it, so.
I'd just like to make a comment in support of what I've just heard here. I personally made the transition from newspaper and print. Last newspaper I received in print was last December. And then I went to Florida for a few months and I went with the e-edition. And I'm here tonight because I read Rebecca's newsletter this morning. And I read the rest of the e-edition this morning. And if you, the one hint I would give people is get a large screen computer like you see up there. That's a 15-inch screen or larger. And with a 15-inch screen, you can enjoy the paper exactly the way you read the hard copy at the kitchen table in the morning.
But I use it on a tablet, just
Yeah.
my iPad.
Yep.
And it works great, it's terrific.
Let me also add just one other thing. I've been reading the Boston Globe for sports, and the Wall Street Journal, and the New York Times for years, electronic editions, and I finally decided to discontinue my hard copies, print edition of the Concord Monitor.
So while we're having a little love fest, let me just agree with everything. and let me praise the Concord Monitor for getting wise about rate design, because it used to be that there was no savings to be had by ditching the print subscription in favor of online only. And now the actual subscription rates reflect the avoided cost of not having to deliver the paper. That's really great. It didn't used to be that way. I just love what's happening to the Monitor. I love some of the new columns that you've added to the opinion page. They're really great. I guess though, and this, I hope this doesn't come across as an unduly edgy question, because it responds to something I heard Steve say. He said that if he could add one more staff person, it would be a development person to go and seek more philanthropic support. And I guess, and this has been kind of a thing I've had with newspapers in New England for a while, at what point does investor ownership become either irrelevant or outmoded? And would newspapers of New England ever consider giving its properties to the community so they can become real nonprofits that could be tax exempt and actually receive those kinds of donations and be truly accountable to the community?
Yeah, that is not a question I'm going to answer today, because it's not my decision to make. But I will tell you, we are fortunate to work for a company that cares about readership, the communities that it serves, and like truly cares. So that's a great thing. Where, you know, the ownership model as it exists in the future, and you know, is it going to be a 501c3? I can't tell you that, but I can tell you that we are operating in many ways like a nonprofit operates, where we have a commitment for any philanthropic money that comes in. It has an obvious effect in our newsroom and is really dedicated to that. We do things like our report to readers, which is our impact report, which is, you know, right out of the playbook of how a nonprofit does. Says, hey, you know what? We're going to tell you what we're doing, and you can find our report to readers on the bottom of our website. It's in the black. It's called the footer, right? You can see report to readers, and you can read it. We do it. We've been doing it 4 or 5 years now, so we are very much acting like that. You know, but it's not an easy decision. Transition from a you know, for-profit business into a nonprofit business is not easy.
But not to turn this into a discussion, but you know, you could be like the Sulzberger family, right? Like they've done a really good job stewarding their property. The New York Times is the most successful news organization in the country. It is not asking for donations, as far as I know.
Well, right. New York Times exists on a far different level
Right.
than most.
But I guess my worry is that you're trying to be two things at once and you'll end up being neither, right? You are a privately held, family-owned business, like the Times, but you're not a nonprofit, but you're sort of acting like one, and I'm worried that you'll kind of take on the worst of both.
Yeah, that's a fair question to be asking. Watch what we do and read our website, where it has our editorial independence policy, our commitment to taking any funding that people choose to give us, which has been really generous, and we've brought it back into tangible things that we haven't been able to do before. Things like News for Your Neighbor. Do you want to talk about News for Your Neighbor?
I'd love to, yeah. Yes, so I was gonna grab the mic, so to speak, at some point to bring this up, because it's two things that I'm really proud of at the Monitor. And since we're getting into kind of edgy topics, news as a commodity. We think that democracy functions well when people have the same set of information. As Steve was saying, in the old days, everyone had the same set of news. Now, today, there's all kinds of different news sources, some very unreliable. And we started to kind of discuss amongst ourselves. If you remember through our bylines, Michaela Tofigi, her beat was 2 New Hampshires. So she was writing about poverty, disparity, these types of subject matter. And we realized, as she's reporting on these stories, that the people she's writing about aren't reading the stories in the Monitor because they can't afford to subscribe. And so I was like, well, this doesn't make sense. So we started to take our donations that we get, and we started to create a program where people could give us money that then turns into a subscription to somebody else who can't afford it. So we are now giving away about 150 subscriptions a year through area nonprofits. We reach out to different like Catch Housing and Concord Housing and many other organizations. And essentially, if people say, I want the Monitor and I can't afford it, we give them a digital subscription. And being able to have more people access the news, the information in the community, that's a really big deal. And this kind of gets back to the income streams that we had. Essentially, if you lived in the community, there was a couple ways that you gave us money. You bought the paper, you advertised in the paper, and that was kind of it. And so it's like, how people wanted to support the Monitor in some way, they wanted us to stay in business. They wanted to support us, but we didn't have a third way for them to give us money. And so we have been working to say News Collaborative, which is a nonprofit, so that people give money to us, we're able to accept it. But rather than just take that money and send it to the owners, we're actually putting it into the community. So it's funding our reporters, it's funding our journalism, and we're making the news more available to everybody else. So that's something I'm really proud of. The other thing that I'm really proud of is the people that we've hired. We have a very, very, very hardworking and smart staff, and I can't be more proud of what they do on a daily basis. So I wanted to throw that in.
So I saw this, and then we'll go that way.
I want to continue the love fest. I think the Monitor is absolutely terrific, and I appreciate every day that I get it. And I want to say, the forum page on the weekend, I really enjoy that. I probably spend an hour or two just reading the weekend, article after article. Whatever you do, don't stop that. That is educating us. And the effort out here now to keep us uneducated are depending upon the Monitor to continue to teach us history and facts and give us a way to become better citizens in our community.
When I say, the Monitor is just as much yours as ours, that's the forum section, right? Where people can write in, give their opinion, and lend their voice. I think that's important.
I love the Monitor. I look forward to getting it every day. have my coffee, read the paper. It's just a great start to the day. One thing I would like to comment on is when you make mistakes or errors and you print the corrections, they almost need a magnifier. And I just wonder if you can improve on that someday.
Make them bigger?
Yeah.
It's the same font as the story. Okay, noted. Thank you. I think you were first.
Thank you. I'll agree with what Jim says. I get up early, unfortunately. And I like to read the Monitor when it's at 5:30. I'd also like, it would be nice if I could read some sports scores. Now, I know that's not an easy thing, because I don't have a clue when you all go to bed, and when you go, and how many papers come out of that same press, and all of these things.
Yeah.
Could you tell us a little bit about
The paper prints at 5 p.m. most days. You know, we can't get in sports scores that are gonna be anything other than 2 days old. So, and that's part of the decisions that we have to make, and the reality of the world changing is that, you know, all of that information should be available elsewhere, and we can't really, we couldn't go back to that world for that. So, yeah, so local sports scores are something that we've just can't compete on anymore. National sports scores.
Yeah, because you go to bed too early.
Yes, yep, yeah. Yeah, we don't print as late as we used to.
Right.
No one does, right? I think the press, because of the delivery cycles and trying to get the papers out the door, and I think the latest anyone prints is 8:30.
What are you gonna do when David Brooks retires?
Brooks is not gonna retire. That is fake news.
I'd like to echo what people have already said, and maybe it's a little bit of a skewed population, those of us who've come, like the Monitor and more interested in it. It's a terrific paper. A good friend of mine was Tom Brown, who was publisher of the Concord Monitor for 20 years.
Yeah.
Tom and I both came from Oregon, so we always used to talk about Oregon sports, but I also knew him as the publisher. When he retired, I just want to point out, the Monitor is really very unique. When he retired, he thought he was retiring, but then accepted a position with the Eastern Oregonian paper in Pendleton, Oregon, just to revive that paper. And one of the comments he made to me about that position, he said, I really miss all the people who write letters to the editor and op-eds for the Monitor. You know, he's in Eastern Oregon, and people didn't do that. So I think New England is really unique. And I'm always astounded at these small towns in New England who have these incredibly, obviously articulate, knowledgeable, intellectual people. You know, John Baird and Wilmot.
Yeah.
God, the guy is unbelievable.
He reads a lot of books.
So I do think the Monitor is really unique in that respect. I mean, it's a New England paper, read by people who are really very thoughtful and knowledgeable about a lot of things. And Amelia, I think you do a wonderful job with the opinion page. It's really really a wonderful group of writers. I occasionally will write an op-ed. I'm astounded by all of the other talent that appears there every day. So, thank you very much.
Great. I think we have a hand back there.
I have a few points. One thing I was disappointed, there used to be a satirical comic strip. It was just one pane. And I used to love that, and then your paper discontinued it.
Was this Marland or was it non sequitur?
Yeah.
No, it wasn't non sequitur. I don't know what it was, but it was usually some kind of a political satire or some kind of current event satire.
Was it New Hampshire based?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe
Um,
not.
Yeah, well, we did, you know, it was a hard decision that we made. It was financial, to be honest. You end up making tough financial decisions. We had a local columnist, Mike Marland, who did New Hampshire-based political cartoons, and it was just, of all the things we needed to pay for, it's just, we just couldn't anymore.
And another thing, this is for more practical reasons. You're not supposed to burn color ink in the fireplace, so I wish they had more black and white pages. And, I mean, I'm happy with your paper, I'm not trying to.
I've never heard the color ink in the fireplace.
Yeah, I read that, and somebody else, I mean, I didn't do a scientific study on the matter, but.
Keep doing it, you'll end up on the front page next month.
And, oh, can I just say one more thing?
Yeah.
I was wondering if you use volunteers. And you don't have to address that if you
Yeah,
don't want,
no,
but.
not.
We have a volunteer reader advisory.
Oh, reader advisory board, but yeah, not.
Yes, I meant besides that, but
Yeah.
anyway, I'll talk to you more about it
Yeah,
after.
we have people that write in,
Yes.
people that submit content on our Your Life
Right.
page, they don't get paid.
I have a couple of ideas, but I can talk to you
Town
about
criers
that.
don't get paid, you're right, we do have a lot of volunteers.
Yes, back here.
So my grandfather had a photography business in town for many years, and he was a freelance photographer for the Monitor from the 50s to like all the way to the 90s. Do you have like a searchable database or archive that I could look that stuff up in?
Yeah,
or
newspapers.com.
Other than newspapers.com? Or
Oh, yeah, that's the best way, newspapers.com, you can find anything you want.
What about like a reporter that you like to follow back in the day that worked for the Monitor? Would they also be on there, or do you have searchable?
That's the best archive we have. I mean, we have other archives, but those are limited to like 2015 forward, and those are in our content management systems. But newspapers.com, we have every paper from 1947 on, and you can search by topic. You know, you can find people. Oh, I think I was on the front page back in 1972, and you know, and you're never right. It's usually off by a couple of years, or you're on page A7. But
Yes, back here.
I'd like to respond to that sort of. My experience has been that the author is not a searchable field. So if you want to find a column by Scott Hardy, you cannot search on Scott Hardy because that's not searchable. You've got to remember what the topic was. And you might find the same problem with the photographer.
I wonder why. Okay, I'll check in on that. I want to know why that would.
Roy Schweiker.
Yes.
Bottom line, we're very lucky to have the Monitor. Thank you.
Well, we're lucky to have readers like everyone here.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Yes.
So there's a lot of articles lately that are from Upper Valley, from North Conway, from wherever, and they're great articles. But when I read them, it's like, my question to myself is, where's the local connection to this? And can they be expanded to give us that local connection quickly? You know, it was, I can't remember, an article about maple sugaring.
Yeah.
Way up in Hanover, I
Yeah.
wanna go maple sugaring Loudon.
Yeah,
You know,
no,
that kind of.
You want to take that or me?
Sure, yes. So in the print edition, there's a certain news hole that we fill, and we were talking earlier about what are the stories and all that, and what do the staff generate. So we have our local stuff, and sometimes that doesn't fill the entire section. So we have different pages. We have Nation World, we have, then kind of, we call it region, state, local state. And that is where we are looking to the Granite State News Collaborative and our partners for stories that we can run that we think have regional appeal. And so therefore we'll pick a story on maple sugaring in the Upper Valley because the trees ooze the same sap down here as they do up there. So, you know, it's that kind of thinking. Sometimes we make really good decisions, sometimes we don't make the perfect decisions. You're looking at a page and you go, yeah, that doesn't quite fit, and we'll try and swap it out. But sometimes, just with the flow of the day, you're looking at that kind of too late, and then it's like, well, we could have swapped out better stories for those things. But we are generally pulling from our partner organizations. That is, everyone who's a member of the Granite State News Collaborative and HPR, pretty much every news source in New Hampshire besides the Union Leader and WMUR. So all of the newspapers and HPR are putting that content out there for everyone to use, and that way it's more collaborative as opposed to competitive. And then to the Ledger Transcript, we will run their stories in our paper as well, and vice versa. So we're relying on our partners throughout the state.
And I'll say something about the collaborative, which came together in the last 6-7 years. The whole point of it is not money that goes back and forth. It's really just an agreement amongst all the news organizations to help each other give more New Hampshire news to readers like you. So we really work together for no other reason than to kind of just give more information.
I think we have come up on our time, so I'd like to thank every one of you for joining us tonight. This was such a wonderful and lovely conversation, and we were so glad to answer your questions and for you all to learn a little bit more about the Monitor. So thank you so much for coming out tonight.
Thank you.